You're listening to The Streaming Wars, the podcast that discusses all of the latest happenings regarding your favorite streaming services. Find out which service is winning the war this time around.
Hello everyone, welcome to the latest episode of The Streaming Wars. I'm Dustin, Tony is with me, and we're here to discuss everything from September 2nd through the 8th. We have a decent amount of news, but not a whole lot to discuss, but we do have a couple of discussion points to talk about towards the end of the cast. There's also a ton of trailers that have released. There's also some new content that is recently released or just released in general that we've been checking out, and we might get around to talking about some of that as well. So let's start off with Netflix. Netflix has a docuseries about Woodstock 99 that is currently in development. There's also a sci-fi drama called The Three Body Problem that is also coming to Netflix. The father-daughter comedy Dad Stop Embarrassing Me gets a series order. That's with Jamie Foxx. The Army of the Dead film, which Zack Snyder has put together for Netflix, is getting a prequel and an anime series. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's production company has inked a deal with Netflix. And then finally, Netflix is going to be launching a Russian-focused service. Now, this is specifically dealing with the fact that there is going to be localized content from Russia within Netflix. While Netflix exists, there is no content specifically meant for, there's no Russian originals, no Russian Netflix originals. And this is going to basically allow Netflix to become a little bit larger. They're going in a partnership with a company already established within Russia to expand. So props to them for that.
Yeah, this is actually pretty big. There's been a big push to grow into different parts of Europe, different parts of Africa, and South America. It's actually kind of interesting because there's another article that I read that deals with how Netflix and other streaming providers are going to self-censor themselves in India. And, that's probably going to draw a lot of different critiques from different peoples. But I'm curious to see what is going to change on the Netflix side in Russia. Like, is the user data going to have to live in Russia, or does it live, in the United States or EU or different servers? Like, there's many different types of things going on. But however, this is good for I think Netflix and international growth, because Russia is such a huge market. So this is pretty significant. This is pretty interesting, and it might lay the groundwork for other deals with maybe China, because they've had some issues getting into the Chinese market as well. And that's like a huge amount of people. Curious to see what protections or what data rights or stuff like that happens for Netflix with its Russian customers. If Russia gets a backdoor into the Netflix platform and gets, the Russian government, like there's many different things that happen. But overall, this is good for, Netflix's bottom line.
All right, jumping over to Prime Video. Orlando Bloom is developing a human rights drama for Prime Video. And then there's also been some word that Sony's Marvel characters, specifically the Spider-Man character, the suite of characters that they have, that they're planning for television, might end up at Amazon. Now, this is unique specifically because obviously Sony owns the right to Spider-Man and a lot of the other characters, but the biggest thing here is that you would expect Sony to maybe cut a deal with Disney to have that content on Disney Plus. It would be in Disney's best interest to have that content on Disney Plus and maybe not be creating it, but at least distribute it alongside all of the other Marvel characters that they have control over. However, that's not the case because it looks like Sony is shopping them to Amazon. And honestly, regardless of who ends up with these rights, I feel like Amazon or anybody else who ends up making a deal with Sony could sincerely do really great for Sony and the other service that they're working with.
This says something about maybe Sony's faith in Disney Plus. I'm curious why they went with Amazon instead of Disney. They've had a good partnership during the cinematic releases of Spider-Man, of trying to figure out distribution rights and different revenue streams. So I'm kind of curious why they chose Amazon as a partner. It could be that maybe Amazon's more willing to take a different content restriction leap than Disney Plus right now. Look at The Boys. Like, that show's definitely not meant to be on Disney Plus. And it could be that maybe Sony is seeing that some of their properties would work better on streaming services that allow for more violence or something like that. So, but overall, this is pretty crazy deal, and it's pretty interesting.
All right, so jumping over to Hulu, actress Emma Roberts has inked a first look deal with Hulu. Nothing for CBS All Access. Apple TV Plus, Hurricane Katrina limited series called 5 Days at Memorial has been ordered at Apple. Apple has landed a Christmas special with Mariah Carey. Tim Conley, who is formerly with not only Hulu but also Quibi, has joined the exec ranks at Apple too. Disney Plus, there is a group watch feature that could be potentially coming to Disney Plus because there's been some things that have been found within code allowing you to potentially use the group watch feature we've seen roll out on a bunch of other services. Moving over to Quibi, there's a mockumentary series called Hot Country Kings that is coming to Quibi. Moving over to HBO Max, HBO Max has brought back their promotional pricing. That was the exact same pricing that they actually offered prior to their launch. It is called the Save for 12 promotion, and it knocks $3 off the list price, specifically bringing the price down to only $12 rather than $15. You can actually get this offer for an entire year before the price would then go back up to the $15 price. That is a good discount considering it puts it also right in line with ad-free Hulu and the middle tier within Netflix as well. So there's that. Then we also have Chelsea Handler has sold the series Blair, which is a comedy series, to HBO Max. And then finally, HBO Max AVOD component has a problem, and it's also its biggest straw. And while this is in the show notes here, we're actually going to bring this back up during our main discussion because we're going to be talking more about HBO Max's ad tier in a minute. Jumping over to Peacock, Chelsea Handler has also sold a series called Wiped Out over to Peacock. And then other streaming providers, there is now Movies Anywhere has their Screen Pass option now available to everybody within the US. You can borrow 3 movies a month to any other user that's out there. So if you can borrow up to 3 titles to any other Movies Anywhere user that has an account, and it basically allows you to borrow them a film. So if you purchase a lot of digital films, like I myself do, I could then borrow a film that I just purchased to somebody else using Screen Pass with Movies Anywhere. The catch, of course, is that Movies Anywhere is not available on every single app, every device out there. It's available on certain devices as a standalone service, but it doesn't integrate along the Screen Pass option does not integrate within the other retailers that other people are actually using, like Fandango Now or Vudu or Apple TV. So that Screen Pass function is specifically only allowed to be used through the actual Movies Anywhere app.
This is actually pretty cool. I like the idea of being able to share and being able to share with different people. So I think this is a great move, and I think it was necessary just for movies to stay alive and for Movies Anywhere to be a good system that needed to do this. So overall, this is a great move, and I'm very happy.
All right, so let's get into our main discussion, and specifically, it deals with the ad tier for HBO Max. There was an article that popped up talking about what exactly could the ad-supported tier be for HBO Max. We all know that they will still have the $15 tier that will be ad-free with all the content, but the question more becomes, what exactly does an ad-supported version of HBO Max look like? When you look at HBO content in general, there are no ads. HBO in general has licensing rights to a lot of films that also cannot have ads because of the way that they are distributed. HBO Max originals have no ads because it's in line with HBO content where it's ad-free. Now, obviously, previous content or older content in general that they have, or licensed content that they have from elsewhere that's not part of the HBO licensing agreements, that content has no problem having ads. Now, specifically, there was an article that popped up on The Information last week that was behind a paywall, but basically, to summarize it, it was talking about how there's a huge problem with the ad tier or the potential ad tier at HBO Max, and that is the content that actually draws people in would be the HBO library of content. But due to agreements, the content within HBO cannot have ads. So if they distribute the content on a service like HBO Max and they put ads in it, it actually it'll come in conflict with some agreements they've already had with cable distributors about this content being ad-free. Now, I'm sure there's workarounds. I'm sure there's ways to get around the fact that these things are already in place, but that is a problem because a lot of people will come to HBO expecting content to be ad-free because that's how it always has been. When you all of a sudden you're subscribing to a HBO Max ad version where you're paying a significant drop in price compared to the ad-free version, you're going to have ads, but you would also probably sit there and wonder to yourself, where are these ads going to be? So there's been some word about potentially having ads take place prior to the content actually starting up, or having a amount of ads, kind of how like Peacock was talking about how they weren't going to have a ton of ads with their content that they were putting out, they were only going to have maybe a max of 2 minutes of ads per hour of content that it was actually releasing, which is drastically lower numbers than the broadcast numbers. You have typical hour-long episodes that have anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes of ads every single episode, because that's just how broadcast television works. So the question, of course, is how do you do that with HBO content? And that's the big question that the information article was asking, but it also brings up these licensing agreements with other studios. So, for example, HBO has had licensing agreements with Universal, where after the movies are in theaters, after they release on DVD and / Blu-ray or home video in general, they will then make their way to HBO for a significant run, normally about 6 months before they end up leaving HBO and going off to wherever else they're going to be licensed to. HBO has those first air rights for those movies. So that's a lot of Universal, obviously Warner Brothers stuff, but they also have deals in place that took place before Fox actually was bought out by Disney. So that's why Fox projects are ending up on HBO as well. So we have like the latest X-Men Dark Phoenix didn't end up anywhere except for HBO when it eventually came to home video. Then it made it to a streaming service, and now it's currently on HBO Max, despite the fact that Disney has actually been adding some of the X-Men films to their library over on Disney+. So basically, to wrap this part of this up, is that you have to honor those original deals, otherwise you risk the problem, or you risk having an issue with these content producers who are licensing their content to you. If you're going to suddenly be making money off of the ads, they might want a cut of that. And while new deals could be put in place, you have to figure out how to make that work. So that's basically what the information article was about that I mentioned earlier. But there's another article that's talking about, there's been some word out there about, specifically some stuff has popped up on Reddit talking about what could the HBO Max Ad-Tier actually look like. And specifically they say if you had the HBO Max plan, it would keep the service as is today, offering all content without ads if you were to pay the $15. The other option would be the HBO Max with ads plan. It would feature ads in select content, specifically Max Originals. Ads would be 2 to 4 minutes per hour of viewing, less than the competitors such as Hulu. However, there would not be any ads in the HBO content, the original content, and that would include all of the movies, the series, the documentaries, etc., because that is that content that we talked about just 2 seconds ago about. That's the content that's on HBO that is required to be ad-free. There also won't be any ads in roughly 50% of the movies on the platform, specifically the most recent and popular titles. That obviously deals with most of the movies that are on there that are outside of the realm of the Warner library. They are coming from other distributors through HBO. So that's the other reason. So that's basically what they're talking about. There's no word on when this would launch. We know that they've been saying that they wanted to have this ad-supported tier out by 2021, and I don't see them trying to push that back in any way, because I feel like the sooner they get that up and running, the better. But it does seem like it's a headache for them to try to figure out which content they can actually have on there. And then, of course, the other question is, so let's say, for example, this is a great question I'll pose to you, Tony. If you have the option of having an ad tier, let's say the price is $10 a month, you have to watch some ads, but 50% of all the content that is on the service, including the high-profile HBO series, including all the big name movies that are on the service, they don't have any ads whatsoever. Why would anybody want to pay the $15 a month?
I mean, that's a great question. I feel like overall this whole thing with the ads is kind of ridiculous. And especially, these recent 2 articles that you just mentioned, it just seems like it's kind of a big mess right now. And it seems like Warner Media is just following through on the promise of yes, we are having an AVOD solution. And, they came out about this, a few months ago before the launch. And then now they're trying to live up to that expectation that they set. And it doesn't seem that they can live up to it. So it was a little bit concerning. And just looking at the whole HBO Max situation, it's worrisome that they can't even, I know we've talked in depth about the issues with getting Roku and Amazon involved, but they can't even get their own advertisers on board with this plan either. And so that's very concerning. would I pay $10 a month for? I mean, it just depends. It depends on how annoying the ads are. But honestly, I'd rather just, and that still seems expensive for an ad tier. It really does. But I mean, that's going to happen when you can't have ads on every single piece of content. You know, you're going to have to get revenue somewhere. So it's like a mixed subscription model plus an AVOD model, and it just really depends on the content. I have a sneaky suspicion that this is really going to enforce the divide between HBO Max and HBO. And I know that Kilar just was brought on and really just said, hey, like HBO is HBO Max. But with a move like this where you don't get ads on the high quality content, but just only on the other Max content, that's really going to create some big issues and some big user feedback complaints. So this really does seem like a little bit of a mess. Hopefully that this is just what's happening in the current moment and that they can fix it. But this is very concerning in my opinion.
All right. So let's talk about something a little outside the box for a second. So secondary, we have two quick secondary discussions. In general, like I've said the last couple of weeks, it's been a couple slow weeks. August is notoriously slow for entertainment news, but there's not been a lot of news in general. So we got a couple of additional ones. One that you probably weren't expecting us to talk about is Walmart's Prime competitor has been announced and is launching actually this month in September. I'm not going to go into the finer details of everything, but I want to specifically compare its version of what they're doing to Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime is currently $120 per year. And when you get that, not only do you get free 2-day service depending on where you're available, in some cases you get same day delivery depending on what it is and what items you're ordering. But they also offer obviously Prime Video, there's Prime Music, there's Prime Books, there's a lot of other things that go alongside your Prime membership other than just shipping. Most people will get Prime for the shipping, but they'll utilize the other aspects. Personally, I have Prime membership. I have plenty of packages delivered from Amazon on a normal basis, but I do use Prime Video. They do have some good shows on there. They do have some good movies on there that either they make themselves or that they license occasionally. They're on there. But in general, Prime Video is probably the only other aspect of Prime that I use outside of the shipping is just the video aspect of it. And I think that's true for a lot of people. Not everybody, but I think it's true for a lot of people. When you look at Walmart's, theirs is basically free same-day delivery. The big difference, of course, is the groceries, because Amazon has not been able to ramp up their grocery element of their business, despite the fact that they purchased Whole Foods. That all being said, when you specifically look at the Walmart option that they're coming up with and Prime, there's a big gaping difference, which is there's not all of those extra services like Prime Video, Prime Music that Walmart is offering with their subscription. Yes, theirs is $21 cheaper, but part of this is, and what's kind of interesting to me, is that it almost shows that in some ways that other extra stuff that Amazon is offering is relatively priced at $21 per year. And when you break that down, across the board to per month, that's less than $2 a month that Amazon, that Walmart believes that aspect of the business is worth. Now, I would argue that it's worth more than $2 a month, but it is what it is. The one weird thing about this is that Walmart just got rid of Vudu. They just sold Vudu, and in the process of selling Vudu, the whole reasoning behind that was, they're going to focus on, their core business, which is retail, which is fine, but it does seem like a missed opportunity because they could have easily incorporated Vudu into this, new offering that they have with the shipping and all of that to really kind of try to compete in some way, shape, or form with Amazon. Personally, I think it's smart for Walmart to concentrate on their own core business of retail. I'm not disagreeing with the fact that what they did with Vudu. I think Vudu is an important business aspect, but I don't think it fits in line with Walmart. But it does seem that Walmart is clearly trying to get the same customer base that Amazon has, but they're not offering exactly the same stuff. And then you have to beg your question, if Walmart is actually successful with this, does that mean we could end up seeing Prime Video spun off on its own because Amazon realizes that they could charge more because the value that they're giving is more? Or do you have Prime Video as its own thing and say, hey, you could subscribe to this, the shipping thing is separate, and you start divvying up these aspects of what Prime is?
was very surprised when I saw this deal. Obviously, this has been in the works for a while, and yes, I do agree. It is interesting how they gave up Vudu to the people at Fandango, and now they're just launching the Prime service. I think this is great from a Walmart perspective. I'm really curious from the Amazon perspective because I'm curious what pressure is going to put on the streaming side of Prime Video, and then also got Prime Music. Because Prime, it's been talked about, reported a lot that Amazon's focus is not necessarily to drive Prime Video and to get that going more. That's not necessarily their one drive. It's to sell Prime subscriptions, and that's all encompassing with the retail side, with music streaming, with video streaming, with everything else that happens. So I'm curious what this is going to have on what effects that this Walmart move is going to have on the Prime Video streaming side. Is how much competition is there really going to be with the Walmart subscriptions, and people are going to shift the retail from Amazon to Walmart, because Walmart is pretty convenient, definitely in the United States. So is Amazon as well. So, and then, okay, if that happens, if there's a big push of consumers who move from Amazon, shipping to a Walmart-based thing, are there going to be any second, third, fourth order effects happening affecting the Prime Video side of the business? And are they going to start cutting shows? Are they going to push more content? What's going to happen there? So I feel like this deal really, really brings up a few interesting bits and pieces about that side. So that's, to me, what captures me about this article is what's going to happen with Amazon.
All right. And then our final discussion goes back to something that I've been pretty hyped about and have talking about a lot over the last 6 months, but the new Google streaming device that has been hinted at, well, it's seemingly moving forward at a very quick rate, despite the fact that it has not been officially announced yet. It appears that now the device has actually popped up on some retailers' websites online, at least within the code, because there's been people who have found it specifically listed for only between $50 and $60, depending on the actual retailer. It'll be available in 3 colors. It's basically a replacement for Chromecast, because it comes with a remote. You don't have to use your phone for a remote. I've already said multiple times that I'm super pumped about the idea of this. The only thing I really wish they would have is a deal in place with Apple TV Plus, so that Apple TV Plus could be on it, because then that would literally be every streaming service that I would potentially use available on one device. Because right now, with Roku and Amazon not having deals in place with HBO and Peacock, Google has deals with everybody except for Apple TV Plus. If they could get that, I'd be super happy, because then I could have a device with everybody on it that I would typically want to be able to use. That all being said, I will say that this device, it's rumored to be coming out at the end of September, along with some other Google devices, including a new Google Nest speaker, a standalone speaker, and the new Google Pixel. While we're obviously focusing on the streaming side of things here, this device could be a game changer, especially coming, if it releases, as they're saying, by the end of the month, going towards the holidays, because, like I said, it has deals in place with HBO Max and Peacock, which are ones that Amazon and Roku don't have deals with. And while Amazon and Roku have Google outpassed even with the Chromecast devices way by far, Amazon doubles the market share that Google Chromecast has, and then Roku doubles Amazon. So we're talking Roku has a 4 times market share compared to Google Chromecast at this point. However, if you're in the market for a new device, you're probably going to gravitate towards a device that actually has deals in place with a lot of the major streaming providers rather than just some of them. And that could be this is huge for a variety of different reasons. If it actually is the way everyone thinks it is, and you have the ability to actually use the device, on top of that, you will also then it'll also create a situation where Roku and Amazon could be more likely to cut deals with HBO Max and Peacock, so that way those services end up on their devices as well, so they don't have a situation that they're starting to lose market share to a device that's new to the game, that's replacing Chromecast but still from Google. So I think this is important. Well, one, because I want the device, but two, it's important to people who already have existing Amazon and Roku devices, because it could be the real way to shift the tide in the favor of the users and getting those devices to actually make those deals, because there is somebody as big as Google who has that potential to start taking away some of their market share.
I'm going to put on my consumer hat for a second and just say that I have a Roku TV, so the Roku operating system is already in the TV, and I have the remote for it. I love Roku. I am Team Roku. I think it's the best platform out there. But because I cannot get HBO Max content on there, even with the workarounds of going through like Hulu, as like the launching pad. I still am not able to get some of the Max original content. I might spin if this is on the shelves and, Roku hasn't made a deal, HBO Max hasn't made a deal with Roku or Amazon. Like, I might jump ship and get this new Google device just to get the content that I paid for. So as a consumer, this whole saga is very annoying. And I understand the business aspects of it. I understand that there's a lot of money involved and potential money, but it is from the weary consumer part of me, I am very tired of this fight. And I would pay $100 to have a device to get me the content that I've paid for, especially the content that HBO Max is very expensive. So yeah, this is overall very frustrating. And if this device delivers, hopefully it will spark every person in this debate with this issue with Roku, Amazon, and HBO Max to get their stuff together and cut deals.
All right. So with all of that being said, there are a number of trailers they've released you can check out in the show notes. Show notes can be found at thestreamingwars.io. Before we go, though, I'm going to bring up a segment that we've done in the past, just because this episode was on the shorter side compared to the last couple of weeks. What have we been watching in streaming? Obviously, it's been some time since we've talked about this. There's been a ton of content that's released. What have we specifically been taking a look at that is on streaming platforms over the past couple, let's say the last 2 months?
So I got HBO Max, and I've been binging a lot of that content. Currently watching Westworld at the moment. That's been fun. It's been nice to watch. Oh, Lovecraft Country. That's another HBO original show. That's been, those two shows have been a lot of fun and a big mind trip. Really enjoy the Ted Lasso show on Apple TV Plus. It's very funny. Just seeing an American football coach try to go into Britain and coach soccer there. That's been very funny to see a lot of those different things. And it's overall just it's a good story. So, kudos to Apple TV Plus. Unfortunately, it's one of the only few newer shows that they've released recently. So that's been kind of a bummer. I watched Mulan this weekend, and the experience of upgrading to the Premiere Access was actually pretty easy. Mulan itself, it's a very beautiful movie. Reminds me of The Great Wall that came out with Matt Damon a few years back in terms of the visual effects and the cinema. It's very breathtaking, very beautiful. I think that if somebody's it takes a lot of different ideas. It definitely goes its own way. When you compare it to the original animated version, it is very different at times. And I think that some people are going to not enjoy that part. But overall, I thought it was I would rate it as a C, a B- to a C. It was a fun film, but definitely not worth the $30 price tag. Then got YouTube TV to watch the NBA playoffs. So that's pretty much what I've been doing as of late. How about you? What have you been into? Recently,
I have been trying to go back to some of the shows that either I had 1 or 2 episodes left, some of the documentary series and things like that on Netflix. So I'm sure our listeners are aware I moved the end of June and have been getting settled into my new place. So I haven't had a ton of time, but when I do find time, I tend to actually watch a lot of stuff on YouTube in general, podcasts and things like that. But specifically, the things I've watched recently, I did end up watching The Old Guard on Netflix. I thought that was an enjoyable film. I did end up seeing American Pickle, which was on HBO Max. I also watched Love Life, which was another one of HBO Max originals. That was, it was enjoyable. It wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a great movie, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't an over-the-top comedy that you would typically expect from Seth Rogen. But there was that. Real recently, my wife and I have started to watch what I'm sure a lot of you are going to say as you're listening to me say this. How could you have waited to watch this, being from Chicago? But I started to watch The Last Dance, which is the documentary that was originally on ESPN relating to the 90s Bulls and the dynasty that it was. And I can honestly tell you, I didn't watch it. I had it actually recorded on my DVR, but then I moved and I just waited for it to come out on Netflix, which was in the middle of July, and we just started watching it. We're about 3 episodes in on that. It's exactly what everybody said online. It's a really great series. So I've been watching that, and most of the time I've been watching some of the original movies and stuff that have been popping up. Just last week, and I watched Class Action Park, which was another HBO Max original dealing with the New Jersey theme park action park. I watch a lot of documentary stuff in general because I just like learning new things, but a lot of the series that I've been really looking forward to watch, I have to wrap my head around getting into 8 episodes of an hour-long show or 10 episodes of an hour-long hour-long show. There's a lot of series like that are on my list. There's a lot of stuff that is recently released. I'm looking really forward to. There's the new Haunting series on Netflix that's coming out in October that I'm looking forward to because I really liked the first one, The Haunting of Hill House, and now the next one is The Haunting of Bly Manor. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm not even a horror person, but I really like the suspense that the first season had. So it's something I'm looking forward to, and I'll make an effort to see that when it does release. That's what I've been watching. So
I forgot one show, and off the air we talked about this. The Boys. The Boys season 2 released this weekend as well. Man, it's been a really good week for content. But The Boys season 2 released with 3 episodes. That show's fantastic. Just I loved it, and it doesn't miss a beat from season 1. And it just the ridiculousness and the suspense just keeps growing every single episode. So that's on Amazon Prime right now. That's one of my favorite shows, and my wife and I are enjoying that a whole lot.
Yeah, and I have every intention of watching that once all the episodes are actually collected, just because I want to be able to watch it all at once. But yeah, that's another one that I'm looking forward to. But if you guys are specifically watching any content that you like to suggest us to check out, or in general, we just like to hear what you guys are watching. So if you want to shoot us an email, thestreamingwars@gmail.com, with any suggestions or things that you guys have been checking out that you guys have been really enjoying, we'd appreciate that. You can also send us, in those emails, you can also send us any questions, comments, concerns, or topics you'd like us to discuss on future episodes. Wherever you're listening to this podcast, we greatly appreciate any feedback. You can follow us on Twitter and join our Discord to find out all about the articles that we talk about here on the podcast and some that we don't. You can follow us on Instagram for all this announcements related to new episodes of the podcast releasing. And with all of that being said, we appreciate you guys taking a listen, and we hope that you continue to stay safe out there. For Tony and myself, this has been The Streaming Wars, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to The Streaming Wars. Check us out on Twitter and Instagram. Also consider supporting us on Patreon. Links can be found at thestreamingwars.io.